Rin's claws scraped against the control panel as another spasm of pain shot through his chest. The thin atmosphere inside the wind chaser had turned bitter cold 3 hours ago when the life support system finally gave up its struggle. His breath came out in visible puffs now, each one a little harder than the last. The meteor strike had come from nowhere. One moment he was running standard cargo through the outer veil sector, the next his entire starboard hull was shredded metal and sparking wires. That was 6 cycles ago. 6 cycles of drifting through empty space while his distress beacon screamed into the void. Nobody answered. Rin checked the oxygen readout again. 12%. Maybe 4 hours left if he stayed perfectly still. His people, the Callians, were fragile things by galactic standards. Their bones were crystalline, their lungs designed for the light gravity and rich atmosphere of their homeworld. Out here in the cold vacuum with failing systems, he was dying faster than most species would. He had stopped expecting rescue 2 cycles ago. The shipping lanes were far behind him now. The meteor impact had knocked him off course, sent him tumbling into a region of space where nobody traveled unless they were lost or running from something. His company would write him off as an acceptable loss. The insurance would pay out. His family would receive a modest settlement. That was how things worked in civilized space. Rin pulled up the recording interface one more time. He had already sent messages to his clutchmates, his parents, the 3 younglings he mentored back home. What else was there to say? He watched his reflection in the dark screen. His crest had faded from its usual bright blue to a dull gray. Stress did that to Callians, made them look like ghosts of themselves. The distress beacon continued its automatic broadcast. Rin had long since stopped listening to it. The sound had become meaningless, just another background noise in his dying ship. Then something changed. A crackle of static burst through the speakers, so sudden and unexpected that Rin jerked upright despite the pain. His claws fumbled across the communication controls, trying to isolate the signal. Was he hallucinating? Oxygen deprivation could do strange things to the mind. "This is the freighter-painted desert responding to distress signal," a voice said. The accent was thick, the words shaped strangely. "Human, we're reading your beacon. Can you respond?" Rin stared at the console. Humans? Out here? They were newcomers to the galactic community, barely a generation into space travel. Most species considered them primitive traders, hauling cheap goods between frontier stations. What was a human ship doing this far from the established routes? He activated his transmitter with trembling claws. "This is Pilot Officer Rin of the Callian merchant vessel Wind Chaser. Hull breach, life support critical, oxygen at 12%. Copied Wind Chaser, stand by." The connection went quiet for a moment, then a different voice came through, rougher, older. "This is Captain Donna Hayes of the Painted Desert. What's your condition, pilot?" "Failing," Rin said. Simple truth seemed easiest. "Impact damage to primary systems. Cannot maneuver, cannot repair." "How long on your air?" Rin checked again. 4 hours, maybe less. "We're 3.5 hours out at current speed," Captain Hayes said. "We're going to push our engines harder. Sit tight." The channel clicked off. Rin sat in the cold darkness trying to process what had just happened. A human ship was coming for him. They were going to push their engines beyond safe limits to reach him faster. Why? They didn't know him. His company had no contracts with human traders. There was no profit in this rescue. Unless they planned to claim salvage rights. That made sense. The Wind Chaser was damaged but not destroyed. The cargo in the hold was still valuable. Humans were known to be aggressive in their business dealings, always looking for advantages. They would rescue him, sure, but then present him with a bill that would take years to pay off. Rin had heard the stories. The Trell did that sort of thing regularly. Rescued ships, saved lives, then demanded payment that left families bankrupt. At least the Trell were honest about it up front. They calculated the risk, added their profit margin, and told you the price before they even started the rescue. Humans, though humans were harder to read, they smiled too much. They acted friendly, then they surprised you with the costs later. Still, a debt was better than death. Rin tried to keep himself alert as time crawled past. He wrapped his arms around his body, trying to conserve heat. His environmental suit helped, but it was designed for emergencies, not extended wear. The temperature inside the wind chaser continued to drop. 2 hours later, the sensors picked up an approaching vessel. Rin pulled himself to the viewport, his movements slow and clumsy. His eyes had trouble focusing now. Hypoxia was setting in. The ship that appeared was nothing like the sleek Callian traders or the massive Trell cargo haulers. It looked old. The hull was covered in mismatched repair patches. Scoring from micrometeorites marked the surface. 3 different types of thrusters were mounted on the stern, none of them matching. It looked like something held together by determination and prayer. But it was here. "Wind Chaser, this is Painted Desert," Captain Hayes's voice came through. "We have visual on you, sending our engineer out for extraction. Your hull's unstable. We need to be careful." "Understood," Rin managed to whisper. Through the viewport, he watched a figure in an environmental suit exit the human ship. The person moved with practiced confidence, carrying tools and a safety tether. They approached the wind chaser slowly, carefully, like someone handling something precious and fragile. Rin's last thought before the oxygen finally ran out was that the human seemed genuinely worried about breaking his ship. About breaking him. That didn't match the stories at all. The darkness lifted slowly, replaced by harsh white light that made Rin's eyes ache. He tried to move, but his limbs felt distant, disconnected. Someone was talking nearby, voices mixing with the hum of machinery. "Easy there, don't try to sit up yet." A hand pressed gently on his shoulder. "You were pretty far gone when we got you out." Rin's vision cleared enough to see a human face hovering above him. Dark skin, concerned eyes, hair pulled back in a practical knot. She wore what looked like medical gear, though nothing matched. Her scanner was Trell-made, her instruments a mixture of half a dozen different species technology. "I'm Rita," the human said. "You're aboard the Painted Desert, you're safe." Safe? The word seemed strange. Rin tried to remember the extraction, but everything after seeing the suited figure approach his ship was blank. His chest hurt. His throat felt raw, but he was breathing. The air was warm and rich with oxygen. "Frank got you out just in time," Rita continued, checking readings on her scanner. "Another few minutes and we would have been recovering a body instead of a person." "Frank," Rin's voice came out as a croak. "The one who pulled you from your ship. Big guy, gentle as a kitten despite looking like he could break rocks with his hands." Rita smiled. "He's probably still checking on your cargo right now. Wanted to make sure nothing was damaged." That made sense. The cargo, of course they would secure their claim first. Rin closed his eyes. At least they had saved his life before worrying about profit. That was something. "How much?" he asked. Rita frowned. "How much what?" "The rescue, the medical treatment, storage of my cargo." Rin forced himself to focus. Better to know the debt now than be surprised later. "What do I owe?" The human woman's frown deepened. She looked genuinely confused. "Oh, you don't owe us anything. We just answered a distress call." Before Rin could process that, the door to the medical bay opened. A large human ducked through, just as Rita had described. Frank was huge by any standard, with arms that looked strong enough to bend metal. But his movements were careful, controlled. He carried a tray with what looked like food. "Thought you might be awake," Frank said. His voice was surprisingly soft. "Rita said you'd need nutrients once you came around. I brought some options. Wasn't sure what Callians could eat." He set the tray down on a small table. Rin stared at it. Protein paste in 3 different flavors, mineral supplements, a container of something that smelled sweet and warm, all of it labeled in Callian script, clearly from his own ship's supplies. You went into my cargo, Rin said. Just the personal provisions, Frank replied. Your commercial cargo is locked up tight. Didn't touch it, but we figured you'd want your own food rather than trying human rations. Our stuff might not agree with your biology. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. Humans were supposed to be aggressive traders. They were supposed to see opportunities and take them. They weren't supposed to carefully preserve cargo they had every right to claim, or bring food on trays, or look at him with genuine concern in their eyes. I don't understand, Rin said. Why did you come for me? Rita and Frank exchanged glances. Frank shrugged his massive shoulders. You needed help. But I'm nobody. My company has no relationship with human traders. There's no profit in this. Rin struggled to sit up despite Rita's protests. You pushed your engines beyond safe limits. I heard the captain say so. That causes wear and tear, maintenance costs. You burned fuel getting here. Your time has value. Sure, Frank said. He pulled up a stool and sat down, the furniture looking tiny beneath him. But what were we supposed to do? Ignore you? Yes, Rin said. That's standard practice. Unless there's a contract in place, most species don't respond to distress calls outside major shipping lanes. The risk versus reward doesn't calculate. Rita made a sound that might have been a laugh or a snort of disgust. Calculate? You were dying. I was a stranger dying in empty space, irrelevant to your operations. Rin picked up the protein paste with shaking claws. His body needed food even if his mind was reeling. The Trell have a formula for this. They assess the value of the vessel, the cargo, the potential salvage rights, then weigh it against fuel costs, time delays, and risk. If the numbers don't work, they don't respond. The Trell sound like they have frozen rocks where their hearts should be, Frank said. They're practical, efficient. They've built the largest trade network in the galaxy using that efficiency. Rin took a small bite of the paste. The familiar taste helped ground him. Your approach doesn't make economic sense. Maybe not, Rita said. She was checking his vitals again, making notes on a data pad. But Frank's daughter is studying xenobiology at university. His whole salary goes to her tuition. He's trying to save up to visit her next cycle. Frank nodded. Haven't seen her in 2 years. Missing her graduation because we can't afford the trip. Then why waste fuel on me? Rin demanded. You could have ignored my beacon, kept your schedule, kept your profit. Frank looked at him like he'd asked why water was wet. Because you're somebody's son, somebody's friend. Somebody misses you back home. How could I ignore that? How could I tell my daughter I let someone die because visiting her was more important? The logic was backwards, upside down, completely alien to everything Rin had learned about how civilized space operated. He wanted to argue, to explain why this didn't work in the real galaxy, but the words stuck in his throat. These humans had saved him for no reason, except that he needed saving. Your ship, Rin said, changing topics because he couldn't process this yet. It's old, multiple hull patches, mismatched systems. She's a beauty, Frank said with obvious pride. Keeps us flying, that's what matters. Rita laughed. Frank, she's held together with spit and prayer. Good spit, strong prayers, Frank grinned at Rin. We make do with what we have, always have, it's a human thing. A human thing. Rin was beginning to suspect there were a lot of human things he didn't understand. 3 days passed aboard the Painted Desert. 3 days of Rin slowly regaining strength while the human crew went about their routines. The ship was heading toward Meridian Crossing, a frontier trading station where Rin's company could send a recovery vessel. The humans had explained this without being asked. They would wait with him until his people arrived, make sure he was safe. The delay would cost them a contracted delivery, but Captain Hayes had simply shrugged and said some things mattered more than deadlines. Rin still couldn't make sense of it. He spent most of his time in the converted storage room that served as a medical bay. Rita checked on him regularly, but she also talked. She told him about Earth, the human homeworld. It sounded like a nightmare. High gravity that would crush Callian bones, extreme weather that shifted without warning, predators that hunted in packs, diseases that swept through populations. It's a death world, Rin had said, using the common galactic term. Rita had smiled. Its home makes you tough, makes you adaptable. You learn to help each other because if you don't, you die. Simple as that. On the fourth day, Rin felt strong enough to leave the medical bay. His crest had regained some of its blue color. His breathing was steady. Rita declared him fit for light activity and gave him a tour of the ship. The painted desert was small. Crew of 5 including the captain. Everything was cramped and practical. The cargo hold took up most of the space, leaving living quarters that were barely large enough for humans, let alone designed for comfort. Rin had to duck through doorways built for taller species. "This is Bari," Rita said, introducing him to a thin human who was elbow-deep in an engine panel. "Chief engineer. If this ship has a soul, it's because Bari keeps breathing life into her." Bari pulled himself out of the panel, wiping grease on his already stained coveralls. He had kind eyes behind scratched safety goggles. "Good to see you up and moving, Rin. How are the lungs?" "Functional," Rin said. He looked at the exposed engine components. They were a chaotic mixture of technologies. Callian pressure valves connected to Trell power couplings. Human-made regulators patched into Sivian cooling systems. Nothing matched, but somehow it all worked together. "Your engine design is unconventional." "Unconventional is a polite way of putting it," Bari laughed. "I call it creative salvage. See this coupling here. Pulled it from a derelict we found 5 years ago. And this pressure valve, traded for it on Station Outpost 12. The original Callian part, actually. Beautiful engineering." "But the systems aren't compatible," Rin said. "The stress ratios are all wrong. This should tear itself apart." "Should, yeah, but it doesn't." Bari patted the engine housing like it was a pet. "You just have to understand what each piece needs. Talk to them nice. Make them work together even when they don't want to." It was insane. It violated every principle of proper engineering. But the painted desert was flying, and from what Rin could see, the engines were running smoothly. That evening the crew gathered in the mess hall. It was tradition, Rita explained. Everyone ate together when possible, maintained crew cohesion. Rin joined them, curious to observe more of these strange humans. The food was simple but plentiful. The crew shared stories while they ate, talking over each other in a way that seemed chaotic but was clearly comfortable for them. Frank described a repair job gone wrong on their last station stop. Bari complained about a parts dealer who had tried to cheat him. Rita mentioned a message from her brother back on Earth. "What about you, Captain?" Frank asked Hayes, who had been quiet. "You seem distracted." Captain Hayes was older than the rest of the crew, her hair streaked with gray, lines around her eyes that spoke of years in space. She set down her fork and sighed. "Got a message from our contractor. They're not happy about the delay, threatening to pull future contracts." The table went quiet. Rin felt his crest darken with shame. This was his fault. His presence on the ship was costing them their livelihood. "How bad?" Bari asked. "Bad enough," Hayes said. "We were already running thin margins. Lose this contractor, we might have to take riskier jobs, go to less reputable stations." "I'm sorry," Rin said. The words felt inadequate. "I didn't ask you to sacrifice your business for me." Hayes looked at him, her expression softening. "No, you didn't ask, we chose. That's the difference." "But why?" Rin's voice came out sharper than he intended. "I've been trying to understand for days. There's no logic to it. You're destroying your own prospects to help someone who means nothing to you." "You don't mean nothing," Frank said quietly. "You're a living being who needed help." "That's not enough reason. Not in the real galaxy." Rin stood up, his claws clicking against the metal floor. "The Trell would have left me to die. The Sivians would have calculated the risk. The Corvan don't even have a word for charity because the concept is alien to them. Everyone knows you don't waste resources on strangers. It's how civilized species operate. Rita snorted. If that's civilization, I want no part of it. You say that now, but you're losing contracts, losing money. How long before you can't afford fuel, before your ship breaks down and you can't repair it? Rin gestured at the cramped quarters, the worn equipment. You're barely surviving as it is. We're doing fine, Hayes said. You're not, I can see it. Bari's clothes are patched. Your equipment is salvaged. You eat basic rations because you can't afford better. Rin felt his frustration building. These humans were kind but foolish. They would help themselves into poverty. At some point, you have to choose survival over sentiment. Hayes stood up and walked over to him. She was shorter than Rin but somehow seemed to take up more space. Let me tell you a story. 10 years ago, I was running cargo solo. Small ship, barely making ends meet. I took a bad route trying to save time and ran into pirates. They damaged my ship, took my cargo, left me drifting. She paused, her eyes distant with memory. A Trell ship found me. They had the capability to help, perfect position to rescue me. You know what they did? They calculated that rescuing me wasn't cost-effective, sent me the formula, showed me the math. Then they left. The mess hall was silent, except for the hum of life support. I survived by luck. Another ship came through, smaller, independent trader like me. They saved me even though they could barely afford it, changed how I saw things. Hayes met Rin's eyes. I swore then that I would never be like those Trell, never do the math on whether a life is worth saving. Some things you don't calculate, you just do them because they're right. Rin sat back down slowly. He had no response to that. Meridian Crossing appeared on the sensors 2 days later. The station hung in space like a massive wheel, lights marking the docking ports along its rim. Ships of various sizes clustered around it, a mix of traders, haulers, and personal craft. This was frontier territory, far from the core worlds, where regulations were loose and opportunities plentiful for those willing to take risks. The Painted Desert requested docking clearance and received coordinates for Base 17. As they maneuvered toward the station, Rin watched through the viewport. His company had been notified. A recovery ship would arrive in approximately 6 days to retrieve both him and what remained of the Wind Chaser, which the humans had carefully towed behind them the entire journey. 6 more days of delay for the Painted Desert crew. They docked smoothly despite the ship's age. Bari's engineering kept everything running true. Once the airlocks sealed and atmosphere equalized, Captain Hayes gathered the crew in the common area. We're going to be here a while, she said. Station Master has some small cargo runs available if anyone wants to pick up work. Nothing that requires the whole ship, just local deliveries. Might help offset our losses. Frank nodded. I can handle cargo transfers, keep busy. I'll check the station market for parts, Bari added. Maybe find some deals. They dispersed to their tasks, leaving Rin alone with Rita. She had insisted he rest more, though he felt fully recovered now. The humans had better medical technology than he'd expected. Rough and improvised like everything else on their ship, but effective. You don't have to stay with me, Rin said. I'm fine. I know, but company's nice. Rita pulled out a data pad and started reviewing supply manifests. Besides, stations like this can be rough. Better to have someone around who knows the territory. 4 hours later, everything changed. Captain Hayes returned to the ship with a tall Trell merchant named Grell. The Trell wore expensive clothing and carried himself with the confidence of someone who made profitable deals regularly. Rin recognized the type immediately. Successful, calculating, always looking for advantages. This is a very nice opportunity, Grell was saying as they entered. High-value medical supplies being shipped to the colony worlds, time-sensitive delivery, premium rates. Hayes called the crew together. They gathered in the cargo hold while Grell presented his offer. The payment was substantial, more than the Painted Desert would normally make in 3 months of standard cargo runs. All they had to do was transport the supplies to a colony system 2 weeks away and return. But they would have to leave immediately. Rin felt his stomach sink. He understood what that meant. They would have to abandon him at the station before his recovery ship arrived. It was perfectly reasonable. The station had adequate facilities. He would be safe here. There was no logical reason for them to refuse this contract. "What's the cargo specifically?" Bari asked. Grell pulled up specifications on his data pad. Synthesized antibiotics, vaccines, emergency medical equipment. The colony had an outbreak of Kessin fever. Their own supplies are depleted. Without these medications, the death toll will be significant. Lives were at stake, real lives that could be saved. Rin looked at the human faces around him, saw them processing the same calculation. This wasn't just about money anymore. People needed help. "We need to discuss this as a crew," Hayes said, privately. Grell nodded graciously. "Of course, I'll be in the station bar. You have 2 hours before I offer this to another ship." He left, his footsteps echoing in the cargo bay. The moment he was gone, Hayes turned to her crew. "Opinions." "The money would solve our problems for months," Bari said. "We could afford proper repairs, real parts instead of salvage." "Colony needs those supplies," Frank added. "People are dying." Rita chewed her lip. "But Rin's recovery ship won't be here for 6 days. Station facilities aren't great. What if something goes wrong with his recovery?" "I'll be fine," Rin said quickly. "The station has basic medical capability. My people will come. You should take this contract." Hayes looked at him. "You sure?" "Absolutely. This is exactly what I was talking about before. You have to make practical choices. This contract is good for you and it helps people who need it. There's no reason to refuse it." The crew exchanged glances. Rin could see the conflict on their faces. They wanted to take the job. They needed the money, but something was holding them back. "Captain," Frank said quietly, "what do you want to do?" Hayes was silent for a long moment. She walked to the cargo bay door and stared out at the station beyond. When she spoke, her voice was heavy. "We don't leave people behind. That's always been our rule. It's what makes us different." "I'm not being left behind," Rin protested. "I'm being left in a safe location with adequate resources while you do important work. It's completely different." "Is it?" Rita asked. "We pulled you out of a dying ship, kept you alive, brought you here. Now we're supposed to just drop you off and fly away." "Yes," Rin said, exasperated. "That's exactly what you're supposed to do. It's the rational choice. The moral choice, even. Those colonists need medicine. I don't need anything except patience." Bari shook his head. "Doesn't feel right." "Feelings aren't relevant to logistics." Rin stood up, his crest flaring with frustration. "You saved my life, I'm grateful, but that doesn't mean you owe me constant supervision. Take the contract. Help people who actually need help right now." Hayes turned back to face the crew. "Vote, all in favor of taking Grell's contract." Slowly, reluctantly, 3 hands went up. Bari, Frank, Rita. All of them looked miserable about it. "Opposed?" Hayes asked. "No hands." "Then it's settled." Hayes's voice was flat. "I'll tell Grell we're taking the job. Frank, start prep for departure. Bari, check the engines. Rita, make sure Rin has everything he needs transferred to station facilities." The crew dispersed quietly. No celebration despite landing a lucrative contract. No excitement about the windfall. They moved like people heading to a funeral. Rin watched them go, confused and frustrated. He had just given them permission to make the smart choice. Why did they all look like they had lost something important? An hour later, Rin was settled in a small station room. Basic but comfortable. His belongings from the wind chaser were stored nearby. Medical facilities were down the hall. Everything was fine. Through the window, he could see the painted desert at its docking port. Crew members moved back and forth, loading supplies for the journey. They would leave soon, deliver medicine to dying colonists, make enough money to keep their ship running for months. It was the right decision. So why did watching them prepare to leave make Rin's chest ache, in a way that had nothing to do with his recent injuries? 2 hours before the painted desert was scheduled to depart, alarms started blaring through Meridian Crossing. Rin sat up in his station room, his crest rising in alarm. Emergency lights flashed in the corridors outside. Voices shouted in multiple languages. He rushed to his door and found chaos in the hallway. Station personnel were running toward the operations center. Other beings emerged from their rooms, confused and worried. Rin grabbed a passing maintenance worker, a Civian with 4 arms and compound eyes. "What's happening?" Rin asked. "Distress call," the Civian said, pulling free. "Family transport engine failure. They're being pulled into a gravity well. Got maybe 3 hours before they're crushed." The Civian hurried away. Rin stood frozen for a moment, then ran toward the docking bays. He knew somehow what was about to happen. He reached Bay 17 just as Captain Hayes was striding up the ramp into the painted desert. The rest of the crew was already aboard. Rin could hear Bari shouting orders about engine preparation. "Captain," Rin called out. Hayes turned. "Rin, you should get back to your room. This could get dangerous." "You're going after them, the transport." It wasn't a question. "Someone has to." Hayes's jaw was set. Station master put out a call for volunteers. No one's responding. Too risky, they say. Bad approach angle, limited time, difficult extraction. "But you're responding." "We have the capability. We have the time. Barely, but we do." Hayes started to turn away, then paused. Grell pulled his offer, by the way, said if we weren't serious about business, he'd find a more reliable crew. Rin felt something crack inside him. "You're losing the contract because of this rescue." "We're losing the contract because we chose to help instead of profit. Different thing." Hayes looked at him steadily. "Now, if you'll excuse me, we have about 2.5 hours to pull off something incredibly stupid." "I'm coming with you," Rin said. Hayes blinked. "What?" "I'm coming. I have navigational training. Callian bone structure is lighter than human. I can fit into smaller spaces if the extraction requires it." Rin walked up the ramp before she could protest. "You might need me." "Rin, this is dangerous. We're not even sure we can pull this off." "Then you definitely need all the help you can get." Rin met her eyes. "Besides, you didn't leave me behind. I'm not leaving you behind either. Apparently, I'm learning bad habits from humans." A slow smile crossed Hayes's face. "Get to the navigation station. Frank, get us undocked. Bari, I need those engines hot and ready." The painted desert pulled away from Meridian Crossing with a shudder and a roar. Bari was pushing the engines hard again, coaxing every bit of speed from the aging systems. Rin strapped into the navigation console and pulled up the coordinates of the distress transport. "It's a Civian family ship," Rita called out from her station. 5 people aboard, 3 children." Frank swore softly. "Kids, always harder when it's kids." "Focus," Hayes commanded. "Rin, give me an approach vector that accounts for the gravity well. We need to match their trajectory without getting caught ourselves." Rin's claws flew across the controls. Callian navigators were trained for precision. He calculated angles and velocities, factoring in the gravitational pull of the dead moon below. "Sending coordinates now. We'll have a 14-minute window for extraction. After that, we either pull out or we're going down with them." 14 minutes. Great. Bari's voice came through the comm system from the engine room. No pressure or anything. The transport appeared on their sensors an hour later. It was tumbling slowly, caught in the inexorable pull of gravity. Rin could see the family through his scanners, huddled in the main cabin. The parents were trying to keep the children calm. One of the small ones was crying. "Transport vessel, this is the Painted Desert," Hayes broadcast. "We're here to extract you. Prepare for docking procedure." The response was frantic, grateful, disbelieving. They had thought they were going to die. "Frank, Rita, suit up," Hayes ordered. "This is going to require EVA. Their airlock is damaged. We'll have to cut through the hull." On it, Frank was already moving. Rin watched as the Painted Desert matched velocity with the tumbling transport. It was delicate work. One wrong move and they could collide, destroying both ships. Hayes piloted with steady hands, years of experience guiding her movements. "Approach looks good," Rin called out. "Gravity is pulling harder than expected, though. We have 12 minutes now, not 14. "Wonderful," Hayes muttered. "Frank, Rita, move fast out there." Through the external cameras, Rin watched the two humans exit the airlock. Frank carried cutting equipment. Rita had medical supplies. They moved across the gap between ships with practiced efficiency, magnetic boots locking them to the transport's hull. Frank began cutting. The torch flared bright against the darkness of space. Metal peeled away in controlled strips. Rita stood ready with sealant to prevent atmosphere loss once they broke through. 10 minutes, Rin announced. "Cutting's going slower than expected," Frank reported. "Hull is reinforced. Good construction, bad timing." "Keep going," Hayes said. "We're not leaving without them." Rin monitored the gravity well. The pull was increasing. They were getting dangerously close to the point of no return. "Captain, at 9 minutes we need to start pulling out or we won't have enough thrust to escape." "Noted." 8 minutes, Rin's claws gripped the console. "Captain." "I hear you, Rin." Frank broke through the hull. Air exploded outward briefly before Rita sealed the gap. They widened the hole, then Frank disappeared inside. Moments later, he emerged with a small Sivian child in his arms. Then another. Rita took them, securing them with safety tethers. 6 minutes. Rin's voice was tight. "We're entering critical zone." The parents came through next, then the final child. Frank and Rita began the journey back across the gap, moving as quickly as safety allowed. They were burdened now, carrying extra weight, moving more slowly. 4 minutes, "Captain, we need to go now." "Not until they're inside," Hayes said firmly. "We won't make it." "We'll make it." Frank and Rita reached the Painted Desert's airlock, started the cycle. The seconds ticked away with agonizing slowness. Rin could feel the gravity pulling at their ship. The engines were straining to hold position. "Airlock sealed," Rita announced. "We're in." "Bari, give me everything the engines have," Hayes commanded. "Rin, best escape vector." "Uploaded," Rin said. His calculations were precise, but the margins were impossibly thin. The Painted Desert's engines roared. The ship shuddered, fighting against gravity's grip. For a terrible moment, Rin thought they wouldn't make it. The pull was too strong, their thrust too weak, the distance too far. Then they broke free. The ship climbed away from the gravity well, every rivet and weld protesting the strain. But they climbed. They escaped. They survived. In the cargo hold, 5 Sivian refugees huddled together, alive because humans had decided math didn't matter as much as lives. The Painted Desert limped back to Meridian Crossing with damaged engines and a cargo hold full of grateful Sivians. Bari estimated repairs would take days and cost more than they had. The medical contract was gone. Their reputation as reliable carriers was damaged. By any reasonable measure, they had made terrible decisions. Rin watched the crew tend to the Sivian family and saw only contentment on their faces. The station master met them at the dock, accompanied by security. Rin felt his crest flatten with worry. Were they in trouble for the unauthorized rescue? But the station master, a gruff Corvan with scarred plates, simply nodded once. "Heard what you did out there," he said to Hayes. "Stupid, dangerous. Exactly the kind of stupid, dangerous thing humans do." He paused. "Good work." The Sivian family had nothing to offer in payment. They were traveling merchants who had lost everything when their ship failed. The father tried to thank Hayes, his 4 arms gesturing helplessly. The children clung to their mother, still frightened. Hayes knelt down to the children's level. "You're safe now, that's all that matters." "But we have nothing to give you," the father said. "No way to repay this debt." "No debt," Frank said firmly. "We just helped, that's all." The Sivians were led away to temporary station housing. The Painted Desert crew began the process of assessing damage and figuring out how to afford repairs. Rin found himself sitting in the cargo hold, thinking about everything he had witnessed. 3 days later, his company's recovery ship arrived. Director Soam came aboard the Painted Desert personally to retrieve him. Soam was efficient and professional, exactly what Rin expected from Callian corporate culture. "The Wind Chaser is a total loss," Soam informed him. "We'll salvage what we can. You'll be reassigned to a new vessel once you complete your recovery period." "Understood," Rin said. Soam pulled out a data pad. "We've calculated the standard rescue fee for the human crew, market rates for extraction, medical care, transport and storage of cargo. The total comes to 42,000 credits." Rin looked at Captain Hayes, who stood nearby with her crew. She showed no surprise, just quiet acceptance. "I'm not paying that," Rin said. Soam blinked. "Excuse me. They didn't rescue me for profit. They rescued me because I needed help. Reducing that to a transaction is insulting." Rin stood straighter, his crest rising. "I refuse to treat their kindness as a billable service." "Rin, that's not how this works. Standard protocols require." "I know the protocols, I'm refusing them." Rin turned to Hayes. "What do you need? Actually need, not what some formula says you deserve." Hayes looked uncomfortable. "Rin, you don't have to do this." "What do you need?" he repeated. "Engine parts," Bari said quietly. "Specific components. We can't afford them and can't fly safely without them." Rin turned back to Soam. "My company will provide those parts, not as payment, as thanks." Soam looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Rin's expression stopped him. "I'll see what I can arrange." Later, as workers loaded the necessary engine components onto the Painted Desert, Rin made his decision. He found Captain Hayes in her quarters, reviewing repair schedules. "I'm resigning from the company," Rin said without preamble. Hayes looked up. "What?" "I can't go back to working for people who calculate the value of lives, who would have left me to die because the numbers didn't work." Rin sat down across from her. "I want to join your crew." "Rin, we can barely afford to pay the people we have. You saw what just happened. We lost a major contract. Our ship is held together with hope and spare parts. This isn't a stable career." "I don't care about stability, I care about purpose." Rin met her eyes. "You showed me what it means to actually help people. Not because it profits you, not because there's a contract, but because it's right. I want to be part of that." Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "You understand what you're giving up. Callian merchant fleet is prestigious, safe, profitable." "Empty," Rin said. "I was dying in deep space and my own company would have written me off as an acceptable loss. You flew through dangerous space, pushed your engines beyond limits, sacrificed profit, all for someone you didn't know. That means something. That matters." "Can you handle reactor maintenance?" Hayes asked suddenly. Rin blinked at the change of subject. "Yes, Callian training includes full ship operations." "Good, Bari needs help. Our reactor is temperamental." Hayes stood and extended her hand. "Welcome to the Painted Desert, Rin. Don't expect to get rich." "I expect to get something better," Rin said, taking her hand. "I expect to matter." The news spread through Meridian Crossing quickly. A Callian pilot had joined a human crew. Other species found it curious. The Sivian family, still at the station, heard about it. They came to the Painted Desert with what little they had: food, small gifts, gratitude. More than that, they spread the story, told everyone who would listen about the humans who saved them, about the crew that risked everything for strangers. Other beings who had been rescued by human ships began sharing their own stories. A pattern emerged. Humans responded when others didn't. Humans cared when caring wasn't profitable. Humans helped. 2 weeks later, as the Painted Desert prepared to depart with Rin as an official crew member, a message came through. A small coalition of rescued beings and sympathetic merchants wanted to support human rescue operations, not as employers but as sponsors. They would provide resources, information about beings in distress, supplies. The humans could continue doing what they did best. Helping. Captain Hayes read the message to her crew in the common area. Bari grinned. Rita laughed. Frank just nodded like this made perfect sense. "What do you think?" Hayes asked Rin. Rin thought about dying alone in the dark, about the moment a human voice answered his distress call, about everything he had learned since then. "I think we're going to need a bigger ship eventually," he said. "There are a lot of people in this galaxy who need help." Hayes smiled. "Then let's get started." The Painted Desert undocked from Meridian Crossing and turned toward open space. Somewhere out there, another distress signal was waiting, another life hanging in the balance, another chance for humans to show the galaxy what truly mattered. Rin sat at his new station, wearing a Painted Desert crew patch on his suit. His crest was bright blue, brighter than it had been in years. He was part of something now, something important. 3 days into their journey, a distress call came through. The crew didn't discuss whether to respond. They just changed course. Rin plotted the new navigation route and felt something he hadn't expected. Joy. Pure, simple joy at the chance to help someone who needed it. Maybe humans were rubbing off on him. Maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed.